boxing. Hello again, everybody. I'm the Colonel Bob Sheridan along with Dave Bontempo. And look what we have for you tonight. Two undefeated fighters for the WBC and IBF Welterweight Championship of the World. Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad, both undefeated. Take a look at the tail of the tape. Not a lot between them. Couple of inches in reach advantage for De La Hoya, and that's about it. So we're going to take a look at the rules as you see it here in the metric system for the countries that have that around the world. And now we'll take a look at the rules of boxing here. Look at that baby face on this guy. This is Felix Trinidad. 35-0 with 30 knockouts. Undefeated and the reigning IBF champion of the world.
Pro since 1990. He beat Hector Camacho in 1994 to capture the IBF Welterweight Championship. Beat Maurice Blocker in 1993. Beaten guys like Obakar, Freddie Pendleton, Pernell Whitaker. And he's been down against guys like Anthony Stevens, Obakar, and Yuri Boyd Campos. So he's an exciting fighter. Also can get dropped. And he'll come in here with Oscar De La Hoya making part of the 66-0 compilation between the two guys.
You see the Puerto Rican fans. That's the Puerto Rican flag. He's very confident coming in here. You know, his strengths as a fighter. You look at his dad leading him in, who also trains him. He's got a huge left hook. He's got a really good jab. He's got a lot of hand speed. He's always in shape. And as you say, Dave, he can come off the canvas. He can get knocked down. And he's the type of fighter you see get knocked down, then you go, uh-oh, for the opponent, not for him.
That's right. Maybe that was a flash knockdown. Now he's mad.
That's it. Felix Tito Trinidad, a native of Cupo Alto in Puerto Rico. His dad works the corner with him and has been with him throughout his career, Don Felix Trinidad. Yeah, this guy has a lot of power, especially early in fights. 18 knockouts inside of 2 rounds, 8 first-round knockouts, 12 fights. Wow. He has wins over Hector Camacho and Pernell Whitaker, as does De La Hoya. So those are a couple of things to look at. I like his hat coming in here, and the Puerto Rican fans love it as well. Well, we've got a Puerto Rican fighter against another Mexican fighter, and that draws the big crowd from Mexico and Puerto Rico. They'll come to support these fighters, not to mention just plain fight fans. This is a classic going into this one, and a very tough ticket to get at Mandalay Bay. I'm thrilled that we're here, Dave, because I don't think there's any place in the world I'd rather be here than where we are right now calling this fight.
You didn't want to be in line having to try to get a ticket for this fight. No, you might not have gotten it.
No, that's for sure. As Oscar's also 31-0. Obviously, you can see it's a long walk for Felix Trinidad to make it from the locker room to make it into the arena here at Mandalay Bay. But there's a lot of enthusiasm in the crowd. The place is jam-packed. A lot of reasons in this fight why either guy could win, because they both have great hand speed. Their size is very similar. There's maybe a half-inch difference with Trinidad being a little bit longer and De La Hoya having a slight advantage in reach. But the way these guys and the way Felix stands straight up, that'll negate any advantage in reach that De La Hoya might have. And there's not that much anyway. They both weighed in at 147 pounds. They're the same age. And, you know, 31-0 for Oscar with 25 knockouts. Approximately the same for Trinidad, 35-0 with 30 knockouts.
And, you know, you talk about the fact that there's not much between them. Maybe there's a bridge toll that Felix Trinidad has to pay before he can get to the ring. Look at that crowd blocking his entrance. He has no spot to go in there. Maybe he needs a ticket to the fight, and he's in it.
Yeah, well, from this day forward in the Mandalay Bay, you can be sure that they will have an aisle put in like they have over at the MGM for him to be able to walk in so that he can get, or any fighter can get to it. Of course, the Puerto Ricans are such enthusiastic fans. They love this guy, and he has, you know, he's got a big entourage of just his own people. Probably in the, I went in to see him in the dressing room about, maybe an hour and a half ago, and there had to be 25 or 30 people in there with him. So, and they're all trying to be seen on television as they work their way out, and they security people are doing the best they can so that everybody can enjoy this. Don King also walking in behind him, and he just adds more confusion to the whole situation, as he's a very recognizable figure.
He kicks out the other 25 people.
That's right.
To get the front and center. You're talking about the stylistic matchup and the fact that there's not much separating these guys in terms of their reach and everything, and that's a different way that we'll look at Oscar De La Hoya fight. Now, we've seen him in fights with the height advantage, and he pounds the body, and he's excellent at taking advantage of opponents' mistakes, and we'll see probably a little bit more of maybe a scholarly approach here, more of a jab-first philosophy for both guys, and then we'll see who's going to gamble first, and that's part of the stylistic intrigue of this. They look at each other. They might see a mirror image of one another when they stare across the ring.
Of course, Oscar will be and is certainly aware, as we talked to him a short time ago as well, of the power of Felix Trinidad, as is Trinidad aware of the power of Oscar De La Hoya. So it might be a little cat and mouse early. It'll be important to see who gets off first. As the record, Felix Trinidad 35-0 with 30 knockouts. A wonderful, wonderful young fighter. And he is very much revered in Puerto Rico. They love him down there. Puerto Rican flag on the back of his hat. And here's Oscar. A long walkout for Felix. Let's see if Oscar can do it any better. Oscar with a hood up, as he usually has, coming into the ring. Head down, all business for him. This is his 11th world title fight in a row. And Dave, you know the strengths of Oscar. He's a boxer with plenty of power in both hands. He's experienced with top opposition. He's got a solid right hand. He's got a terrific jab. And this really, as a matter of fact, is his first fight against somebody who is actually taller than he is.
And that's what brings an interesting question into it, because he is one of the most versatile fighters in the game in terms of evaluating the style of a match, what's going to work for him, setting up a game plan. Very reminiscent of Sugar Ray Leonard that way, in terms of seeing exactly what a matchup is going to give him and then trying to work toward that. If it's smaller fighters, he works inside, pounds them with body shots and then hits them with multiple combinations on the inside. Here, what could be a straight-up boxing match, we'll see some new things from him, I'm sure.
This last time out, he stopped Obakar in May here at Mandalay Bay. He's been 12 rounds 4 times in his career as Oscar. And this, while they both have plenty of power, looks like a fight that may go a few rounds. So both of them are very, very well conditioned. Felix trains down in the humidity in Puerto Rico, and while Oscar will go up to Big Bear in California, he gets plenty of training. And conditioning has never been a question with either one of these guys when they come into the ring. Oscar De La Hoya, 31-0, no draws, 25 knockouts. Look at this, 11-0 with 7 knockouts in world title fights. So this one, my boy, has it all. 2 undefeated guys fighting for the world title. You get the goosebumps just thinking about this.
Well, how many times do you get to see undefeated guys at or near their prime in a high-level showcase? It's hard to make those things all happen.
All right, here's Michael Buffer. Let's get it underway, Michael.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Damas y caballeros, bienvenidos al Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino of Las Vegas, Nevada. Tonight, Boxing Hall of Fame promoter Bob Arum and his Top Rank Incorporated, along with your undisputed, undefeated King of Beers Brewery Fresh Budweiser. This Bud's for you. Present World Championship Boxing, the unification bout for the IBF and WBC titles in the welterweight division. An event so big, it took 2 of the newest Las Vegas resorts to bring it to you. Presented in association with the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino and Paris, Las Vegas Casino Resort. Sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Chairman Dr. Elias Ghanem, Commissioners Glenn Carano, Lorenzo Fertitta, Dr. Luther Mack, and Dr. James Nave. Executive Director, Mark Ratner. Timekeeper at the bell, Jane Broadfoot. Counting for the knockdown seconds, Al Bicep. Lead physician, Dr. Flip Homansky. Las Vegas Resorts to bring it to you. Presented in association with the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino and Paris, Las Vegas Casino Resort. Sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Chairman Dr. Elias Ghanem. Commissioners Glenn Carano, Lorenzo Fertitta, Dr. Luther Mack, and Dr. James Nave. Executive Director Mark Ratner. Timekeeper at the bell, Jane Broadfoot. Counting for the knockdown seconds, Al Bicep. Lead physician, Dr. Flip Homansky. Ringside physicians, Dr. James Wishgame, Dr. Al Capana, and Dr. Margaret Goodman. WBC President Jose Suleiman. Supervisor for the WBC, John Morris. IBF President, Robert W. Lee Sr. Supervisor for the IBF, Bobby Lee Jr. The three judges scoring this bout on a 10-point must system will be Glenn Hamada, Bob Logiste, and Jerry Roth. And when the bell rings, your referee in charge of the action, Mitch Halpern. And now, ladies and gentlemen, y ahora, damas y caballeros, the time has arrived for the ultimate confrontation. 12 rounds of boxing for the welterweight championship of the world. Are you ready? Damas y caballeros, ¿están listos? From Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino of Las Vegas, for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, let's get ready to rumble! Introducing first, in the blue corner, presentamos primero, wearing white and weighing in at 147 pounds. He brings a perfect professional record to this ring. 35 bouts, 35 victories, including 30 knockouts with 8 KOs in the very first round. 27 knockouts in 5 rounds or less. He has been a world champion for 6 years, fighting in 15 world title bouts, 13 ended by knockout, and he has faced 6 world champions. Tonight, he puts it all on the line. Tonight, he looks for victory and glory. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the reigning and defending undefeated IBF welterweight champion of the world, damas y caballeros de Cupe Alto, Puerto Rico, presentamos Felix Trinidad. And across the ring, fighting out of the red corner, wearing blue with white, he also weighed in at 147 pounds. In 1992, he captured Olympic gold, and now, as a professional, he has a perfect record consisting of 31 bouts, 31 victories, with 25 victories by knockout, 22 of those knockouts coming in 5 rounds or less. Since March of 1994, he has consecutively held 4 world championships, fought in 19 world title bouts, 14 ending by knockout, and he has faced 12 world champions. Tonight, he also puts it all on the line in his quest for victory and glory. From East LA, he is the 4-time world champion and reigning and defending undefeated WBC welterweight champion of the world. Damas y caballeros, presentamos el niño de oro, the golden boy, Oscar de la Hoya.
The crowd is really into this one. Mitch Helper, and the referee will call the combatants to the center of the ring, and we'll have this one underway for you momentarily. A lot of time for these fighters, and they're getting ready to go. It seems as though there's a problem with.
They don't have a mouthpiece.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have his mouthpiece. Can you imagine if they got to go back to the locker room and get a mouthpiece?
It might be faster to fly back there and get one.
How do you come out without a mouthpiece? But anyway,
with all the people around you, also, how do you not come in there with your mouthpiece?
it seems like has he got it now? Is he set or not? It doesn't appear like he has it, Dave. From where I'm sitting, I don't know if where you're sitting, you can see it any better, but yeah, and you know, you have to ask the question: then is this a ploy?
I would say no. You know what's because you know it could be just as much of a distraction for yourself as what you think you could do to the other guy, and also at this level. You can't intimidate and distract a guy at this level.
No, and the fighters are all warmed up from the gym. In fact, a lot of times, you know, in recent years, they don't even play the national anthems with the fighters in the ring because they don't want to stand around for a minute and a half or 2 minutes while the anthems are played. They want to come from the dressing room, and it's a long walk from the dressing room. So I would say no such thing as a ploy at all. Once these guys come out, if anything, it takes the edge off. They want to get going.
What you might conclude from it is that the next time Tito Trinidad fights, there might be some different people around him.
Yeah,
well, somebody himself, and also somebody supposed to be looking after him. A detail like that.
Security guy running back, trying to get to the locker room to try and get that mouthpiece in. Big Jeff Gramoja, who I've traveled with, that works the corners of so many good fighters, including Tom Boom Boom Johnson, told me that, you know, everybody has a responsibility. The mouthpiece, the buckets, the towels, and that's you know, a normal checklist. Well, we've got the mouthpiece here, so we're just about ready to go. A little bit of delay, and that just heightens the anticipation for the crowd.
Now, what a tactic would be is if you looked at it and said, no, I don't like this one, go back and get a different one.
I don't think so, David.
We're ready now.
This will be a clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Obey my commands at all times. Any questions, touch gloves, good luck.
All right, we're set to go. 10-point must scoring system. No standing 8 count. No 3 knockdown rule. A fighter cannot be saved with the bell in any round. Only the referee can stop the fight. And remember, if there's any accidental headbutts, Dave and I will explain that to you as it becomes pertinent to the fight. Oscar De La Hoya now undefeated at 31-0 in the blue with a white trim to the left of your screen, and Tito Trinidad to the left of your screen now decked out in white. He's 35-0 with 30 knockouts. Really going here, guys sort of feeling each other out. Side to side goes Oscar. Remember, he has to be concerned with the power of Tito Trinidad, as Tito has to be concerned. And don't forget, Oscar has 25 knockouts in his 31 victories as well. With all the anticipation of this fight, a little cat and mouse in the early going here. Who's going to open up first? Who's going to land the first punch?
We talked about it at the very top that, you know, with this height and reach matchup, negating an edge for anybody, that we would see a tentative approach. These guys are going to look to see where their jab can land and what's the best spot to get that going, and then work into their attack.
Yeah, there's more going on in their heads than what we're seeing from their fists right now at this stage with 1 minute gone in the first round. Somebody will open up here soon to really test it. Tito has thrown more punches. He hasn't landed any punches. They're caught in the gloves by Oscar. Now Oscar tests his jab, and Tito flicks it away, and is Oscar coming forward. So in the first minute and 30 seconds gone in the fight, nothing between the two.
What Oscar did with his jab is he jabbed and stepped to the left, and that's what enabled him to get that punch in. A subtle shift on the angle for him.
He unleashes the hook, and it's not there. Remember, Tito is very quick on his feet as well. Oscar, you know, and Tito Trinidad very quick. Dave, you pointed out something in the early going. You know, this guy can get knocked down. When I'm talking about that, that's Tito Trinidad. But, you know, he doesn't have a glass jaw. He can go down, but he pops up just as fast. And it always gives him an adrenaline flow.
Yeah, ask Anthony Stevens, Joey Boy Compass, Oba Carr. They were able to put him on the deck, and then he gets up. It's almost like an alarm clock. Okay, shifted to a different gear, and he's come back strong from those situations. And it's a combination in some cases where he's been standing still, in some cases in which he has gambled and got caught because he's an explosive offensive fighter.
You can see when Oscar does something offensively like he did there, the crowd comes to life. But in reality, this round to me is dead even. And if it's close at the end, we want to remember this round. A chant for Oscar. Oscar goes up. Tito lands a shot, and the bell ends round one. You tell me who won that round, Dave.
I think you're going to see him split on all the cards. You're going to see a variety of range. I think Trinidad landed some better shots. And had Oscar going back.
Well, I did something in line with what you just said there as you listen to Robert Alcazar. And that's that I scored a 10-10. I can get away with it because I'm not an official scorer, because I believe I can do that when I think the judges will be split on it. But that's an important round, even though it's only round one, if it's going to be this close.
Calma, y todo el mundo con calma. Está bien en la pelea. Ese ya no te lo puedo contar la pelea.
You know, for a crowd that forgot the mouthpiece, it's very calm in Tito's corner. There's the beautiful strip in Las Vegas, Nevada. A beautiful, beautiful mid-September evening. In the hundreds outside, but it's very comfortable inside here with no humidity. Round number two. The Colonel Bob Sheridan along with Dave Bontempo. Watching our international telecast from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino here in Las Vegas. Tito Trinidad in the white trunks. Oscar's got to pick it up a pace. Don't let this guy, you know, try to take any early rounds, especially with that first round was so close. Tito trying to pump that jab, but a lot of this stuff is being picked off by Oscar with the gloves.
Being picked off, but yeah, the perception of aggression might be important in this kind of a fight. If there's nothing separating them, the guy getting off the mark first, even if his stuff is blocked, could get an edge.
Oscar got a little something through there as he doubled his jab, and Tito seems to be doing a nice job with his jab, and he throws a few right hands now and then, but they're being partially blocked by Oscar De La Hoya. Now the crowd is favoring Oscar, so you know, you think in the close rounds that the judges could be swayed just a little bit, but these are experienced guys. I mean, Glenn Hamada, Jerry Roth, and Bob Lowe, they've been around. That one touched the chin of Tito Trinidad. Trinidad catches him up on the ear. A minute and 30 gone in the second round. Still not a lot between them, is there?
No, you've got De La Hoya trying to box and Trinidad trying to load up a little bit, but there's a good sharp jab by De La Hoya getting in. And he's moving to his left and creating the opening to score with his jab. Nice. That's working for him right now.
You're right, David. A nice counter left hook by Oscar. Bouncing side to side. Trinidad up on his toes right in front of him. Kind of dragging his right foot behind him coming in. And when you're doing that as opposed to what he's doing right now, now he's driving off the back foot. So, you know, you get the power into your jab, and instead he goes with the right hand. But when you're pushing that back foot forward, you get some serious power. He didn't quite catch, caught the back of the gloves. That looked a lot better from afar than from what we could see right here up at ringside. (29, 28, 27 seconds to go here in round number two, and what has been a strategic fight to this point, early going. Trinidad in white, Oscar De La Hoya in blue. Again, caught in the glove.
And these guys are trying to find out what's going to work for later in this fight.
Well, I think the heavier blows in this round, and there haven't been a lot of them, but I think they've been landed by Oscar De La Hoya. And in this last 10 seconds, just before the bell, he landed about 3 of them. So if that's in the judge's mind, then De La Hoya probably gets the second round.
Esto había pasado en el gimnasio y yo sabía que iba a pasar acá, pero eso no importa. Eso no va a seguir pasando el resto de la pelea. Eso se para ahora. Se para ahora. Tú no le pones grasa en la cara, por poco. Mira, eso que tenía está por ahí. Sí, yo tengo ahí. No te apures, que va a seguir sanando. Olvídate de eso. Olvídate de la sangre. Tiene que cortar la nariz también, ¿sabes? Él está partido con el jab tuyo.
Cool corner.
Olvídate de la sangre de la nariz que está allá para allá mismo. Haga con la boca.
De La Hoya on the outside jabbing, and Trinidad's left hook got in from that position. Both guys trying something there. De La Hoya jabbing and moving, then he gets the right hand in. Nice ability to duck and avoid a counter.
All right, so we're coming up to round number 3 at Mandalay Bay. This is co-sponsored by the Paris Las Vegas Hotel as well. It's such a big fight. People scalping tickets. It's you know, it's like a World Series of Super Bowl with these two undefeated, very popular fighters.
Yeah, casinos love these kind of fights. They get on the map internationally. They tell their high rollers that they're serious about sports and about gaming. It's one of boxing's big appeals. As you mentioned, the two casinos sponsoring it. This has been something that has electrified the entire city.
It means a lot of money to the city, and you know, in recent years, Las Vegas really has become the boxing capital of the world. Taken away from the, you know, the mid 40s and 50s, where New York, Philadelphia, then later in the 60s, Miami became big, and then with the oncoming of Muhammad Ali, the world was the scene. But Las Vegas is where the action is now in boxing. And they can stage it. They can handle it with thousands and thousands of hotel rooms. So it's great. The action continues a lot here in round 3, like it started in rounds 1 and 2. One guy will get something through. Crowd getting a little antsy. Felix tries the left hook, taking the back of the gloves of Oscar De La Hoya.
And these guys are trying to work, experiment to see what is the strategy that's going to work over the course of the fight. They're relaxed. They know they can settle in. They know it's a long fight. And each guy is trying to get comfortable. Trinidad is trying to find a range for that right hand. He wants to drill that home. And De La Hoya wants to be comfortable with the movement and pop the jab in, and there he squares up. And these guys are seeing what is going to be the best ticket. And then you get the sense they will settle in and do what got them here.
And try to pull the trigger against a guy that has equal speed and equal size. Now Trinidad is taking more than he's landing. This is developing into a pretty good round so far, even though those punches were short for Oscar De La Hoya. Trinidad in the white, Oscar De La Hoya in the blue trunks. Look at the size of the legs of both of these men, and that's where they generate the power. I'm talking about the calf area. They generate a lot of power. Nothing landed, but as you say, for the judges to see that aggressiveness, it's supposed to be effective aggressiveness, but with as few punches, really clean punches, that have landed in the 3rd round, Oscar is on his way to winning this round.
If it's a tie, then it's the perception of aggression that will stem a tie.
And just like at the end of the 2nd round, Oscar landed a combination there as the bell ends the 3rd round. So I get De La Hoya winning the 2nd round unofficially.
Oscar, escúchame.
I'm working here.
Come on, Oscar, listen to me. Relax, breathe and relax. That's it, nice. That's it. There you go. Oscar, escúchame, lo estás llevando a la escuelita, ¿ok? Le estás dando lecciones de boxeo, ¿ok? Mantén esa distancia. Sigue manteniendo esa distancia, ¿ok? Oscar, sigues muy abierto con el gancho de izquierda. Recórtalo a 45 o cámbiaselo de otro. Pero entras y sales, no te quedes ahí.
Sigue siendo el más técnico. Está bien. Y mano con el Tito, que todavía tú no has llegado con la mano en el cuerpo. No has llegado con la mano en el cuerpo. No has llegado con la mano en el cuerpo. Mano antes, cuando te metas cintura rápida. Cintura rápida cuando te metas.
Both corners, David, are pleased with what they see so far. These are very, very close rounds, and just barely, I think Oscar edged out Tito in the second and third round. But, you know, you talked about it back in the first round where I put 10-10 down. I mean, all those rounds could be either way.
Yeah, there's not much separating them because we also talked at the top about the mirror image style for these guys. They're both trying to get off first with the jab. They both have the same method of trying to get inside. And it's really going to be the guy more comfortable with a secondary plan of attack who will get the edge in this fight. So they both want the jab first. And then one guy's going to say, well, maybe I'll try the right hand first. Maybe I'll try to go to the body first and see what works.
Now this is the jab. It's not getting through off the hands of Tito Trinidad. And De La Hoya is able to touch him up. They're light jabs, but that one was a pretty stiff jab. Tito gets his through. So Oscar continues to bounce left, and then he plants and stops. And when he does, look at the way Tito Trinidad attacked. So Oscar better keep on the move, because when he stops and plants, Trinidad's right on top of him. And it's Oscar that's kind of the ring general. He's the one that bounces left, bounces right. Tito just keeps coming after him.
But yet there's nothing getting in. So you can bounce. You have to bounce and you have to get close. And that's where the gamble part of this fight will be.
Well, you know, we talked about the fact that Tito can be knocked down, and in a close fight, I'm sure that he does not want to have to recover from a knockdown and have to pick up a couple of points, because everything is so close so far. So he's showing a little bit, I think he's showing caution early here in the fight, because I've seen him, you know, open up very fast. He knocked out a lot of guys in the first couple of rounds of fights. He starts fast, but against De La Hoya, he's just cruising.
Not only a close fight, but a close to the vest fight. We are not seeing these guys unleash here, whether it's too much mutual respect or stylistic similarity.
Well, of course, the fans want to see guys get knocked down and rolling around in the ring and that sort of thing. But in reality, this is a great prize fight. These are two very, very good boxers. And I think it's difficult for the people, especially seated here at Mandalay Bay, if they're seated way up, to really appreciate how good the boxing is here.
Well, one thing you'll never see up in row 30, you'll never hear two guys talk about ring generalship.
That's right. That's right. And as a matter of fact, if you're, you know, you're more than 10 or 12 rows back, even half the press, because there's so much here, can't really see this fight the way we see it here in the front row. It's chopping right hand by Tito Trinidad that time. Missing wild with the right hand, and there's the bell.
How many 10-10 rounds can you do?
Well, I can do as many as I want because I'm not an official judge, but I've been to the judging clinics, and I learned this thing in the close rounds. About 60% of professional judges disagree. So I'm just going to try to let you know, folks at home, that it's a close fight. Officially, I've got De La Hoya out in front by 2 points.
And change the high once in a while, Oscar, okay? Cámbiale. Cámbiale de altura.
Here is De La Hoya working on the inside. That gets the hook around, and Trinidad scores up high. De La Hoya with the hook, Trinidad with the hook. I think Trinidad got the edge in that last round. A little bit of power.
All right, we'll see as we continue on to round 5. The Colonel Bob Sheridan here with Dave Bontempo. Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino, Las Vegas, Nevada. The WBC and IBF Welterweight Championships of the world at stake. That's the 147-pound division, with two of the very best in the world doing battle here. Tito Trinidad in the white trunks, undefeated with 35 victories and 30 knockouts. De La Hoya in blue, undefeated with 31 victories and 25 knockouts. Even their records are close.
There is a lot of similarity, guys at the height of their career, and they are in a chess match type of a fight. You're waiting to see who's going to make the big gamble into a secondary style to break up that tie. We're seeing right hand leads from De La Hoya, which is an unusual tactic, but it's worked for him because it's unusual. And we see Trinidad trying to load up on some power shots and finding that De La Hoya is elusive.
Boy, their positioning, they're really aware of the power of their opponent, because when they close, they're throwing. But Tito with that left hook, although he goes with the right hand lead that time. Oscar very well able to parry punches off with his right hand, and hasn't taken a full, really heavy shot from Tito as yet. And Oscar with halfway through this 5th round trying to land something heavy on Tito Trinidad as Tito continues to try to cut him off in the corners. Tito lets the right hand fly. Oscar needs to throw more right hands as well.
And he can try to do that if he captures Trinidad moving and switching as he's trying to cut off the ring. Then that right hand will be there, and he's throwing it as a lead punch, almost as if he was a lefty.
Well, that time Oscar really loaded up, missed with the left hook, got the straight right hand down the middle. Tito continues to plod forward. He made the mistake of coming in the time before without throwing when he came forward. You got to be quick, and they are quick, and that's why this is such a terrific boxing match. And like I say, for people seated back afar, it may not be as good, but for you folks watching on television, if you want to see a boxing match, you're watching a classic right now. Dipsy doodle to the left, ducks underneath the right. Tito wants to land the right hand. He does, but Oscar pulls his cheek, and most of that punch is slipped. Closing seconds now of the 5th round. Another very close round that Oscar just might be stealing right now. The Chalpern steps in, and that's it. I don't know. I'm going to give that one to De La Hoya as well.
His father's happy seeing the little burst at the end of that last round.
Oscar, you steal this round in the last 10 seconds, big time.
The corner saying exactly what we said the last 10 seconds. No Angelo Dundee trick with both Ray Leonard and going back to Muhammad Ali. Win the last 30 seconds of the round, coast along, stay in the round, and leave them screaming on their feet. And it was successful for both of them in rounds that were either close or that they actually lost if they'd steal the last few seconds.
And Oscar De La Hoya, with this burst here, may have stolen that last round. Nice placement, good leverage, 5 in a row.
That's the way I have it. I didn't give him outright the 1st or the 4th round, but he hasn't got less than 10 points in any round in my score sheet, so I expect the way the judges may be seeing this fight that they're around where we are. I know all 3 of these judges pretty well, and I'm usually close. But hey, it still doesn't mean anything, because this fight has a long way to go. We're in the 6th round. Oscar getting off pretty good now here in the 6th. Up on his toes, pawing with that left hand. Tito tries to get his through. Tito wants to throw more right hands from his corner.
De La Hoya wants to sit down more on his punches, but he's still a little bit too far away to get the power shot in. Studying, he's trying to get close enough to put more into his attack.
That blood on the trunks of Tito Trinidad is from the bloody nose that he's had going back in the 2nd round. Nothing significant, because his dad knows exactly how to keep it closed up, and that's just the blood that has dripped down onto the trunks. Makes the fighter look very courageous. Over a minute gone here in the 6th round. Tito trying to really do something that he can grab around definitively. He hasn't had a definitive round in my way of thinking yet. Now he lands the right hand to the left side of the head of Oscar. Oscar comes back with the jabs.
Doubled up and then scored with the right hand. And De La Hoya luring Trinidad to him and then scoring here. He's in a stylistic groove at this moment. He waits and then he scores.
Look at the footwork of Oscar De La Hoya as opposed to Felix, who has the wide stance and pushes off the back foot and gets his power from that.
De La Hoya is using the footwork to set up his offense here. Moving laterally, finding an angle, actually creating an angle for himself, and then trying to score. And you have to be in a superb condition to do that. To use your footwork is only the first half of your strategy.
As De La Hoya is actually touching up Trinidad more in this round as well. So at this stage with 30 seconds to go, I get De La Hoya out in front, then he bangs him on the left ear, shoe shines him. Nothing big, but as you say, Dave, decent left hook from Tito Trinidad, as you say, you know, it captures the judges. And even that, although the punches looked a little bit short to me, Oscar's doing more. He's more flamboyant. And the perception is he's scoring a lot more punches.
He's getting closer. That was an excellent round for De La Hoya.
Yeah, Tito landed a pretty good shot there, but then there's the bell. That's a De La Hoya round. That was one of the more definitive De La Hoya rounds, the 6th round. And I'll tell you this, Tito better start picking it up because it's coming up to the second half of this fight now, and I've got him trailing by 3 or 4 points.
Ahí donde tú peleas, tú lo puedes minutito cuando te metas adentro. Te metas adentro.
Tenlo, Oscar. ¿Me escuchas? Beautiful.
Bell, Chuck Bodak working the corner. There he is.
Recórtale. Recórtase, no lo quieres por afuera. Okay.
All right, we're coming up to the 7th round here at Mandalay Bay. I'm the Colonel Bob Sheridan with Dave Bontempo. I don't know where you are watching this around the world, but I'll tell you, Davey and I are loving it here. De La Hoya in the blue trunks, and in the white is Felix Trinidad. We're looking for Trinidad to turn it up a notch now. A lot of close rounds in the fight, but we can be definitive about 3 or 4 for Oscar. There's one of the few body shots that Trinidad has gone to. Oscar continues to be the guy in the move, sliding to his left and back to his right, letting his hands go. Felix tries to land the right hand. You know something, Felix looks a little frustrated right now to me.
Yeah, he's trying to cut off the ring. He's coming up just a little bit short. De La Hoya has been just a little bit quicker after Trinidad gets to a point where he should punch. He is following Oscar now.
You know, the way the crowd reacts every once in a while, you know, they sound almost like they're disappointed because these guys aren't flying around and laying a lot of flush shots. But, you know, if you're boxing purists, you love this fight.
The boxing purists love it, and the contrast is the way the tickets were sold and the way the advertising went and the way the marketing went. You thought it was 2 warriors with big knockout records, and they're going to mix it up in the middle of the ring. And that is what the boxing fan always believes he's getting when he either buys the fight or goes to the fight. And so that's why you put on a boxing clinic to that person isn't happy. On the other hand, people who appreciate the throwback fighters and the skill levels and the boxing and the moving do like the fight.
As opposed to a Ron Lyle, George Foreman fight that took place about 10, 12 years ago, where they were down 10 or 12 times in the first couple of rounds of the fight.
And that is what the majority of the boxing fans want.
Well, the racing fans say they go to see good racing, but they really want to see a crash. And the same thing is true for boxing. But believe you me, folks, you're watching 2 classic, very good fighters do battle here in great shape, and there's no shortage of movement or work that these guys are doing here.
And it also brings up the idea of how the styles make the fights. And these guys, their style at this point is not compatible for a slugfest. These guys don't have much of a separation in their reach, and this is one that's going to have to be won with intelligence first, boxing second.
Well, Tito has been able to get his jab through more here in the 7th round. As I say that, Oscar gets off one. Those punches all missed. The crowd, of course, loves to see that. Actually, I think the heavier blows in this round have been landed by Tito Trinidad.
Yeah, the jab and getting closer.
Well, that was after the bell, but he was in the process of throwing a punch. But, Oscar's not usually a guy that, you know, does that sort of thing, but I think he's frustrated by that round. And that's the first clear, in my opinion, round for Tito Trinidad. I still have Oscar out in front. Of course, my scoring is very unofficial with the even rounds that I put down.
Boxing lesson.
Okay?
Boxing lesson.
Hay que poner el ratito. Hay que poner.
Seconds out.
De La Hoya trying to get to Trinidad. Trinidad closing the distance here, and Oscar thinks he got hit after the bell and reacts.
He did, but he was in the process of throwing the punch. Now De La Hoya wants to make a statement more than anything. So let's see as we go to the 8th round here in a very close fight. Again, very slightly I have De La Hoya out in front in this fight, and Tito had one of his best rounds of the fight, I think, in the last round. And he better put some more together if our scoring unofficially is accurate. Tito goes with that right hand lead again, trying to set this guy up for a power shot. Being held off by De La Hoya. De La Hoya is still cautious. He's well aware of the power of Felix Trinidad, and by this stage in the fight, although there haven't been a lot of heavy blows, he's felt the power of Trinidad. What Tito's trying to do is to catch Oscar when he's sliding back to his left with the right hand. Pretty good combination that time by Trinidad, and Trinidad blocks most of the stuff by Oscar. Nothing landed in that series of punches, and he's short. Well, that one, the last punch of the 3 or 4 he threw, just grazed the chin of Tito.
When you've watched many De La Hoya fights, you know that he gets inside and mixes it up, and you see the power coming through, and it's been rare for him to get to that position in this fight. When he's tried to get his power punches going, they've been so far outside that he's been coming up short. He needs to be about a half step closer to Trinidad to plant in there and get off his best shots if he wants some inside efficiency.
Good point, David. The other thing in that flurry just before that, he had the thumbs turned out and he trying to blast the body of Tito, and Mitch Halpern said, hey, keep the punches up. That time Tito was a little bit south of the border. Another close round, folks. Minute to go in round number 8. And what I would say is a classic boxing match. I like this, and the real purists of boxing like this, like yourself, Dave. I know you like this.
Yeah, the trainers like this because they said, hey, you're doing what you want, you're staying on the stick and all that. And the typical boxing fan is still waiting for something to happen for one of these guys to separate.
And they may well see it, although it might not be till they're walking out when they can argue about who should have or who did win the fight if nobody goes down. There's a nice hook, one of the heavier punches by Tito Trinidad. Caught him again on the jaw, spun the head. You know, and it's just 1 or 2 punches like that that can be the difference. He caught him again on the jaw, was grazing, but at least he touched him up. 1 or 2 punches like that can make the difference. Now, Oscar tries to unload in the closing seconds, but in the last couple of rounds, he's been short with his punches. You know, Tito Trinidad does it, and Mitch Halpern says, hey, watch it after the bell. I got to give Trinidad that round.
Yeah, it's 2 rounds in a row that he's been warned about the late shot, and he'd hate to lose a point in a close fight like this. There's a good right hand by De La Hoya getting through after he shows the jab. Nice action here. spin, get some power coming through. Double jab, and that sets up some good things for De La Hoya here.
Geez, with that replay, you'd probably be wondering, why did I score that round for Felix Trinidad? But the highlights were shown of Oscar De La Hoya's highlights and not Felix's. That's why sometimes when you watch at home, you have a producer's idea of the best action that they can get and get it back up on the screen for the replay, but it doesn't really tell you the story of the round. And I think that's one of those cases in that round. That was certainly the best series of flurries that Oscar had, but I, as a matter of fact, thought Trinidad had more in that round. And that's why I scored it the way I did. Round number 9. Tito Trinidad in the white, trying to pick up the pace in the last couple of rounds, and he has. Landed more clean shots. Oscar backs off, takes a light shot to the body.
And Trinidad blocks De La Hoya coming forward. Good body work here by De La Hoya, punctuated with a shot to the head.
Actually, in reality, that was a really good body shot by De La Hoya that time, with a minute gone now here in the 9th round of the scheduled 12-round welterweight championship fight. 2 titles on the line: Oscar's WBC championship and Felix Trinidad's IBF championship.
And remember what we talked about at the top of the telecast, that for De La Hoya, very tall guy that he's facing, it's affected how he's launching his shots, where he's launching them from. He's starting from further out. Not always quite comfortable with where he is starting his attack. He's trying to figure out how to get inside the Trinidad reach.
Trinidad comes upstairs with that one, partially blocked on the gloves of Oscar De La Hoya. And this is just another one of those rounds. Is it too early to start talking about a possibility of a draw here, Dave?
No, not with the way the styles go back and forth here. De La Hoya coming out strong in this round, getting an edge, and now Trinidad closing the distance on him and starting to do some of the things he does best.
Landed one, missed one, and took a left hook from Trinidad. So again, flurries, exchanges, one guy then the other guy. Very few real power punches. "26 seconds to go." You know, even though, Tito is the guy coming forward and showing that aggression, the ring generalship is being dictated by Oscar with his movement. So, if you're going to score the judges on aggressiveness, it must be effective aggressiveness.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next round as a tiebreaker too. Effective aggression, any kind of aggression is good to break a tie.
Man, I don't know. I don't know who to give that round to, but I'm leaning towards Trinidad because of heavier blows.
All right, I'm going to go with De La Hoya.
Yeah, and
because of effective aggression.
Okay, I won't argue with you, Dave.
No, I think that's an indication where the judges might be too on this.
Well, on my score sheet, giving De La Hoya, or rather Trinidad, the last 3 rounds, I've got 1 point separating the fighters with 3 rounds to go. So it's anybody's fight.
I've got 1 point for De La Hoya going into round 10. And this is some of the good stuff he did in the beginning of that round. Body shots and then up on the top. First minute and change of the round, Oscar De La Hoya doing his best work. Trinidad did good work after that.
Well, if you only watch that replay, you'd give that round to Oscar De La Hoya. And that's how sometimes at home people say, well, what are these announcers looking at? Because they're seeing the replays and say, oh, Trinidad wasn't even in it. But that's not the whole 3 minutes of the round. And again, the local networks here in the United States seem to be focusing on the good things that De La Hoya is doing. So I don't want to give you a misconception that Oscar's way out in front in this fight, although I think he is out in front. And his Tito coming on. And I know that Don Felix Trinidad has told his son, hey, you better get going. This thing is way too close right now.
And way too open to interpretation because of how these styles have gone back and forth. An interesting point you make about what replays you see. Yeah, this, if it's a different sport, you're seeing a highlight. It's an absolute scoring play based on rules of other sports. Here, like all of boxing scoring, it's an opinion. And you're seeing something good that De La Hoya did in the beginning of that round with his body shots. And Trinidad came on later.
And here in this round, too, almost midway through it, I think that Tito's landed heavier blows. And as Oscar started out, he threw a couple punches, and now Tito seems to be in a nice flow right here. But both of these guys are working. It's still a chess game. Look at that shot.
It's a question of how much De La Hoya can get to his left when he uses the footwork to set up his attack. If he doesn't get far enough to his left, then Trinidad is in perfect punching position and he scores. In other rounds, we've seen De La Hoya move more quickly and set the tempo of the fight. Here, we're seeing him not get quite as far, and that's why Trinidad is closer to him.
A couple of body shots that just catch Trinidad on the cup or the side of the cup, and then Oscar lands a nice jab. He has that in the face of Tito. Elbow comes in and pushes Tito's head back. Oscar is very slick, as is Tito. Tito looks a little rambunctious right now, like he really wants to load up and try to land a definitive shot and try to say to the judges, okay, give me this round.
And you sense how late the fight is. You sense how important all of these rounds are now. I mean, they're all equal, but the window of opportunity is closing if you have to rally. For this round, he is in pursuit of Oscar De La Hoya and gets his best three-punch combination off in quite some time.
Well, with this flurry at the end, it's going to be hard not to give this round to Oscar. Good body shots. Bell ends it. I got to give that round to Oscar De La Hoya.
Okay, Oscar. No more rounds like this one, okay? Check right here.
His corner is telling him they don't want him to mix it up anymore like that.
Okay.
They may think they're way out in front in this fight. I don't think so.
That's all what you need. 2 more rounds. Okay, that's it. And we go home.
Once in a while, Nail has to give his respect.
Ya pasamos los peores momentos de la sangre.
Seconds out, let's go. Rubber out.
All right, here we go to the 11th round in a very close fight. Unofficially, I have Oscar slightly out in front of this fight, but don't forget, remember I said all the way back to the first round, remember I scored that even. If that went to Trinidad, we got a dead even fight.
And round 4 was pretty much like that too.
Pretty much like that. So
you've got 2 rounds that are real wild cards in this fight.
Yeah, there could be a wild card in terms of, just let the fans know that this is a very close fight and can at this stage go either way with these 2 rounds to go.
And we're seeing Trinidad up in the face of De La Hoya early in the round for one of the few times in this fight.
Well, De La Hoya's opponent, more or less from what you heard, Dave, thinks they've got this fight in hand, and they probably don't want him to take too many risks. And on the other hand, Tito Trinidad's people have told him, you've got to win these last 2 rounds. And Tito's fighting like that now.
We heard from De La Hoya's corner, no more rounds like this one. But good round for him last round. I was surprised to hear that from them after the performance he had given, because I didn't think he had taken too much of a risk in round 10. And he had done some pretty good offensive work.
I thought it was a terrific round for Oscar. This is round 11, though, and it's a different kettle of fish. Oscar not throwing as many punches, and Tito is landing many, many more. There's the chopping right hand. Oscar ties him up for one of the few times in the fight. Lets Mitch help him do his work. Both guys hanging on, trying to get a breather. Now he calls timeout.
I say, Vic, you step back. Understood. Keep this team. Let's go. Go.
Mitch tells him, this is one of the good young referees in the world today, Mitch Halpern, giving stern instruction. When I tell you to step back, step back. Oscar gets that jab in the nose of Tito Trinidad with a minute to go. Trinidad with a digging body shot. The crowd gets so excited when Oscar does anything, but you know something? The heavier punches in this round are being landed by Tito Trinidad.
Well, De La Hoya looks like he's trying to buy time in this round, just get through the round. Sit on the lead with the implication coming from the corner last round, and Trinidad is doing all the work in this round.
And he's coming on just as his corner wanted to. Oscar, you know, just what you said, I just got that same feeling. Oscar turns it on, but you know, those punches meant nothing. All wide punches to the lower elbows of Tito Trinidad, and Tito really hustling now, chasing him down, running after him. This is a very good 11th round, as far as I'm concerned, for Tito Trinidad. All shoe shine punches, nothing tough taken there by Oscar De La Hoya. That's why rounds like this can be controversial. Meanwhile, Tito bangs him on the ear just before the bell. That's a Trinidad round.
A pretty clear cut there.
But you know, Dave, in reality, there haven't been that many clear-cut rounds.
No, maybe about 3 in this whole fight.
Last round, Oscar. Last round.
3 minutes. 3 minutes. Respira, descansa. Ahí va.
Felix, last round. Good up. Last round.
Respira, descansa. Oscar. Oscar. 3 minutos. Oscar,
I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, this is anybody's fight. I've got Oscar De La Hoya out in front by 1 point going to the 12th round. But Dave, we talked about the 2 rounds that I scored even, which I know the judges won't have even rounds. So if they lean towards Oscar, then Oscar's out in front. And if they lean towards Felix, then he's out in front by a point or 2.
And how about this? I've got 1 point for De La Hoya also entering round 12. And you and I have had about 3 or 4 rounds different.
Yeah, and that's a good indication as we start the 12th and final round. We've come to the same score, but we followed different avenues to get here. And I expect the judges. Well, let's follow the 12th round and see who wins this and if it's a definitive round and what effect it will have on the eventual scoring of the fight. Doesn't appear that either guy is going to get knocked out unless something really surprising happens here, because this has been more of a chess match of excellent boxing. Tito Trinidad backs off Oscar. Oscar's up on his toes again, but you know something, the way he's going back and back, it's like he's in survival mode. You mentioned that in the last round.
Yeah, that he's taking the corner's advice. He said no more rounds like what happened at the 10th. And the 10th was an effective offensive round for De La Hoya.
I thought so. Oscar doing a lot of feinting. He's up on his toes. He's avoiding Tito Trinidad instead of engaging. There's a big right hand. Spun the head. And again.
See, now you take a guy out of his natural offensive flow when you put it in his head, or he buys into the idea of, I'm going to coast and just box. Now, when you want to turn up the offense, if you do, you can't. Even if you want to turn up the offense just to keep the other guy honest, you're not in that offensive flow anymore. You're in a survival, work the clock kind of a flow. And if you're going to feel that you have such a lead that you can do this, you have to be right about those early rounds. And they were so close, many of them, that you really can't afford to do that at this level of fighting.
Well, Oscar still has his feet, but the 3 heaviest blows that were landed in this round are off the hands of Tito Trinidad. A little tappity-tap sort of shots by Oscar. Tito's still trying to load up. You see that left hook? Oscar able to duck underneath it. Trying to get the jab out there, but really moving backward instead of engaging and trying to make sure he captures this final round.
Trinidad, with De La Hoya's help, has cut this ring into bit-sized pieces. Not only just cutting off the ring, other than what Oscar's doing now, but he's been right in front of De La Hoya, has had perfect opportunity to set up his office and go to work.
In a fight with very few definitive rounds, this has become a definitive round certainly for Felix Trinidad. And if a fight continues to go, unless Oscar can come up with some sort of flurry, this is a very definitive round for Trinidad. It could be the difference in the fight.
Very unusual to see that you've gotten to this stage, you're unbeaten, and to take your own aggression out of play in rounds 11 and 12 is unusual. It's not like you've been hurt in this fight.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're trying to, you know, you've got so much respect for the guy's power, he's hurt you. De La Hoya, at the height of his good work, stopped it. That's a Trinidad round.
Absolutely a Trinidad round.
I end up with a draw here.
And you know something, David, as I look down at my score sheet, I've got it 115, 115, a draw as well. We both had a draw, but we both got there different ways. Both of these fighters and their families feel that they've won the fight, so somebody's going to be disappointed. The three judges, official judges, will have it probably slightly different from us. Here we go with the official announcement.
Colonel, this fight is ridiculously close, and when you see the fighters up on the shoulders of people, you know they're trying to persuade the judges one more time. Somebody will be disappointed.
That's for sure. I have it scored 115, 115 myself, so it's going to be close and it's going to be controversial if it comes down. Here's Michael Buffer coming to the center of the ring to get the official particulars.
Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the Budweiser scorecards. Glenn Hamada scores the bout 114 to 114. He has it even. Bob Logiste scores the bout 115 to 114. And Jerry Roth scores the bout 115 to 113 for the winner by majority decision, de Puerto Rico and the unified welterweight champion of the world, Felix Trinidad.
Well, how about that? Tito Trinidad gets it by the closest of margin by the two judges, Jerry Roth and Bob Logiste, had it 115 or 114 and 113. That's always one round difference. The third judge had it the way we saw it, even though we got there in different ways. He had it in an even fight. So that's what we expect when you have that many even rounds.
The fight was all over the place from a scoring standpoint because it was close to the vest from both guys, meaning that one little thing is going to have a big impact. And one of the things that will be questioned after this was the curious strategy by Oscar De La Hoya to essentially take rounds 11 and 12 off on the perception that he was sitting on a lead, and he was not sitting on a lead. Based on his reaction, you would get the idea that he thought he had a huge lead after the 10th round, and in effect he had a narrow one. If you look at the sportsmanship, these guys know that they both put forth a nice effort in what was a thinking man's fight.
Yeah, I like to see the sportsmanship of Oscar De La Hoya. Tito's a terrific kid as well. Well, there's one thing for sure now. We have an undisputed 147-pound champion of the world. When you hold two major titles, they call it undisputed. That man is Felix Tito Trinidad. For Oscar De La Hoya, a huge disappointment. But for this guy, he is absolutely elated in all of Puerto Rico. When he returns home, there'll be a huge parade for him.